Okay, we're good,
All
Chair.
set? Great. We will now call the meeting of the Administration and Projects Committee to order at, I guess it's 8:30 your time, 11:30 my time. Please give your attention to this short video.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Do we have the recording back going again? I heard it sort of ended while we were in the middle of that video.
It appears to be going. I'm not exactly sure why we received
Yeah, it did
that
say it
notice.
stopped.
Yeah,
Should check.
I think it's the
But
Zoom
it-
recording, Christina. I don't see it there.
It says, oh, there it
Weird.
goes. Okay, all right. Christina, will you please conduct the roll call?
yes, Chair Nowak,
Here.
Commissioner Arnrich,
Here,
Commissioner Fideli,
Here.
Commissioner Geringer,
Here.
and Commissioner Thorne. All right, we can move forward with the meeting. We do have a quorum.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Christina, have we received any public comment, written public comment?
No, we have not.
Okay. Is there any members of the public that would like to address any items not on the agenda? Please raise your hand using the Zoom feature. Do we have any public comments?
I see no hands raised.
Okay. Great. Then the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any changes, comments? Anybody need to pull an item on the consent calendar? Okay.
Oh, hello, Sue, Chair.
Oh.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Very excited about the Dam Road, San Pablo Dam Road overpass. Phase 2, those of us at WICTAC are very excited and contributed a $500,000 local match. It impacts so many local communities in West County. So thank you very much for this.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate that. Is there any public comments on the consent calendar? Any hands raised or any written comments?
I see no hands raised and I have not received any written comments.
Okay. Can I get a motion for the consent calendar?
Move
So
for
moved.
approval, Geringer.
second,
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Geringer and a second by Commissioner Arnrich. Christina, can we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Arnrich,
yes.
Commissioner Fideli,
Aye.
Commissioner Geringer,
Aye.
and Chair Nowak.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes with the members present.
Okay, great. Next item on the agenda is an informational item introduced by Lindsay Willis to provide us an update on legislation.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. We have both our federal advocates here this morning, Gus Maples and Jason Ty, and our state advocate, Mark Watts, with us this morning.
Excuse me, Lindsay.
Yes,
I don't know if it's everybody else. I can barely hear you.
Yeah, I can barely, just maybe speak louder if you can.
is that better? I switched the microphone.
No,
No?
I think your volume's turned down, which is also your
Just
mic.
shout, Lindsay, just shout.
Your mic volume might be turned down or something.
Okay, well then we will try to make this really quick, and I'll just turn it straight over to Gus and Jason to get started with the federal update.
That was a little better, by the way.
Better.
Good morning, everyone. As a lot of you are probably aware, we had some big news at Gomentum Station earlier in September. Secretary Pete Buttigieg, the U.S. Transportation Secretary, was able to come visit along with some of his senior staff and officials from the department as well. I will leave that to Tim and Lindsay to have their moment to shine on some of the conversations that were had there, but just wanted to highlight very positive federal visit that just occurred. On a related note, some of those senior staff are continuing to review a number of the new discretionary grant opportunities, funding opportunities that were created as part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That includes the mega projects grant. I think there's been some back and forth just over the last few days, maybe within the last week, which is a very positive sign as the officials at the department are continuing to review and make the probably getting close to final determinations as to what will be included in their future announcements. Obviously not finished yet, but I say that's a very positive to continue to have the conversations and the follow-up data collection from the agency. Moving on to the congressional front, we've got midterm elections coming up in November, and then we will have a very busy lame duck session after that election. The shakeout of the congressional party dynamics will definitely have an impact on the spending agreement for the fiscal year 2023 appropriations bills. The Republicans are had been pushing for parity between defense and domestic non-defense spending. Looking to projected outcomes of the election, I would say they are now advocating for possibly even increased defense spending. But obviously that is all subject to the ultimate shakeout of the party dynamics after November. Included in part of those appropriations bills is an expectation for some disaster supplemental relief funding, including some relief for the hurricane damage recently in Florida and along the mid-Atlantic coast. The National Defense Authorization Act is another must-pass bill that the Senate is expected to take up sometime between the election and Thanksgiving. There are a number of other bills that are still under consideration and being pushed for by various members of the House and Senate. These include the Water Resources Development Act, which will reauthorize a number of Army Corps programs, the Electoral Count Act, which is reforming the congressional process for certifying election results. This is a response to the January 6th incident at the Capitol. And this does have bipartisan congressional leadership support as they are trying to basically process timing for some of these. Energy permitting reform is another thing on the agenda. That was Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia attempted to include it in the stopgap spending bill, the continuing resolution back last month, and ultimately it was not included. But congressional leadership has promised him that they will attempt to take care of that again. And all of this spending will, of course, have an impact on the federal debt ceiling. So as we look into the 2023 year, that will definitely need congressional attention to raise it or suspend again. And with an expected division between party unity in the Congress and the White House, it should be a very interesting year on that front in 2023. I think that's the current agenda as to what we're looking to when Congress gets back from the elections. And I'll see if Jason has anything further to add here.
Jason, you're muted. Jason, you're muted.
Can everyone hear me? Hopefully I'm better now. So thanks for pointing that out. Gus, that was a phenomenal presentation. The only additional item I would like to add is to really underscore the import of the Secretary's visit last month in that very, very beautiful and lovely, cool, brisk fall day. Without a doubt, there are, as we all know, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of communities across this country. And the fact that the Secretary visited with us to learn about the innovation that is happening at CCTA firsthand at Momentum Station is really testament to the leadership of the board that has provided that vision and the ability for the team to carry all that out. I would like to give a quick shout out certainly to Lindsay for organizing so many of these things. Having done this many, many years ago when I was young and energetic and had a lot of extra time and didn't have 3 kids, understanding the logistics that go in working with a cabinet member meeting is very, very intense and a lot of groundwork. And then certainly Tim with his excellent presentation and all of the additional media that was generated by this has really paid off in so many dividends. Just the other week, I was walking around Capitol Hill doing our daily routine. And then folks came up to me and said, hey, don't you represent Contra Costa County Transportation Authority? And didn't Secretary Pete visit with you guys? And I think that really, really creates that buzz and enhances all of the great groundwork that has been laid in the past, but has really pushed that and leveled it up in many, many different ways that will reap dividends. So I did want to underscore the import of that, the tremendous work of the entire CCTA team and the board. So with that, thank you and happy to answer any questions with respect to the congressional calendar or anything else here in Washington. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions of Gus and Jason before we move over to Mark? No? Okay. Lindsay, you want to introduce Mark?
Hopefully you can hear me better now. I'll turn it over to Mark Watts, our state advocate in Sacramento.
Good morning, commissioners. Got a lot of good news to open up with today, and I'm going to close with kind of a sobering update on where things are heading here in Sacramento. So as a reminder, in August was the end of the legislative session, and throughout the month of September, we all monitored on a daily, almost hourly basis, the activities of the governor as he released his decisions on bills. He had until the end of September to act on legislation, otherwise it became law. He chose not to let any escape through without his pen approving or vetoing it. And I think we did very, very well in terms of CCTA's interests, some of the bills we talked about toward the end of the session, as well as the industry as a whole. So I thought I would cover a couple of 3 specific bills in particular. I'll give you an update on what's going on with the general fund appropriation for transit and intercity rail. That's a very exciting development. If not only the funding is out, but the guidelines are out. And then I'll close with the sobering reminder of what we're looking at for the next year budgetarily. So the 3 bills I'm going to talk about was AB 2438 that dealt with aligning This was Chair Friedman's effort to align state Caltrans, STIP, and SHOP programs with the Secretary's climate action plan that they adopted adopted a year ago. It was very rigorous at the beginning, at the outset of the year. The industry worked very diligently. You guys, pardon me, the board directed us to take an opposed position. We did, and we were part of the coalition that opposed it. And eventually she amended the bill, and it was, interestingly enough, it was satisfactory at the end. It went to the governor, and the governor said, well, I still don't like the bill. That work is already underway. We don't need a bill to tell us to do that. I do want to see how this progresses. So that bill, which was brought to an even level by the industry, was eventually vetoed by the governor. The other bill that was of interest, or another bill, was AB 2441. This bill would require public transit districts to give 12 months notice to to their unions if they're planning to use autonomous vehicle technology of any sort. The governor vetoed it. He thought that the bill has some ambiguous terminology. He does look forward to working with stakeholders to see if there is a way to develop a bill that's acceptable to both the represented workers, their unions, as well as the innovative regional entities who are trying to move ahead with exciting new technology. The last measure we didn't take a position on. I did report briefly on it earlier, and that is AB 1591. This was by Mr. Grayson. It was a late emerging bill. We thought it was going to be held in appropriations, and it wasn't. It expanded, and I'll just say this, it expanded the exemption from sales taxes for manufacturing purposes, equipment and the like. Traditionally, when they've had a manufacturing tax credit, it is applied to only the state side of the sales tax and not the local side, because historically it's been considered either a mandate or some reimbursable cost. Mr. Grayson moved ahead and extended it to cities and counties, as well as, to cities and counties, as well as special districts. So it posed a threat to self-help counties, as well as all cities and counties in the state in terms of revenue impact at this point in time. The governor did veto the measure out of concern of the impact on local governments. The opposition was led by CSAC and the league, and transportation interest kind of stood on the sideline while those two bodies went forward. Interestingly enough, this is one of the bills where the governor first started signaling that he has concerns about the state budget moving forward. I'll come back to that in a second, but he did point out that the governor sent $20 billion worth of expenditures to the governor in the form of bills, with $10 billion of that being ongoing cost pressures, and he was concerned about that. So those are the three bills. They turned out in a way that I think is best for transportation interests. I'll move on now. The TIRCP, that's the Transit and Intercity Rail Program. It's a major program that was founded back under the early GGRF appropriations when they first started doing the emission credit auctions. The TIRCP consists of funds from the GGRF. 10% of all the auction items, auction proceeds are funded into the TIRCP program. It also has some element of about $300 million each year from SB1, the registration fee, and it produces about $500 million a year, or $1 billion on a 2-year cycle, which is what they could traditionally have used. The 2022-23 budget augmented the TIRCP program with $3.7 billion, with 1.8 dedicated to the south and 1.5 billion dedicated to the north. So it's going to be at a very exciting time. I think we're all very excited that the governor's staff and Cal STA were able to recently release the guidelines so they can accelerate the acceptance of applications and the awards. And a brief outline of the schedule so you are aware of this. They will have guideline workshops in early November. They will have final guidelines in mid-November. An interesting twist that they've never considered before is allowing existingly funded TIRCP funded projects to recompete for more money. And I think that's going to be important for some elements across the state. And that helped put this whole package together. That information is required in December. The announcement of project awards is scheduled for the end of January. So it's a very exciting time to get this money out the door. Now I'll close with the sobering news. The state budget, which was put together with a $100 billion surplus, as we all know, which allows a lot of this money to go into programs like TIRCP and other major allocations, including the rebates to the citizens as and taxpayers, which is required by the state appropriations limit. That all was very well accepted. Shortly afterwards, we learned that the monthly collections for August is $4 billion below the original projection that went in to assemble the 22-23 budget. I've been talking to budget staff. They're monitoring this very carefully. They will be asked at some point, if this continues as a trend, to make recommendations on which programmatic increases would be ones you would want to defer and see how the budget year comes out. It looks like the transportation ones, because it took 2 years to put together this package, is probably at the end of the list for deferral. In other words, they're probably going to assume that the appropriations are going to be good for programs like TIRCP and others that were appropriated. So a little bit sobering. It's, got to be cautious. We're going to be watching how the budget goes during the fall on a month-to-month basis, and prepare for the new legislature to be seated in December. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'd be glad to take questions if you'd like.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Newell?
Mark, thank you. Just the question, obviously it was the last part. Great news on everything else. And, interesting, I had met with Assemblymember Grayson, and he just couldn't figure out why cities and counties weren't excited by his bill. And as you pointed out, I said, well, Tim, you are a state legislature and you were giving away our money when the lion's share, which is 6.5%, you didn't touch. And he couldn't understand that. I don't get that. But I told him maybe if you came back, you'd get support if the state put the money in and we'd all celebrate. But the $4 billion that you're saying that the state is recognized, we're just getting our sales tax. Was that just sales tax? Was that all revenue in the state? And
that was all revenue for the the annual projection included all revenues, and that $4 billion was all revenues across the board as well.
Did we know any breakdown of it? Was it more on the income tax side or was it on sales tax?
I do not have that at hand.
Boy, if we could find that out, I think that would be good for us, because we can only see the sales tax side.
Yeah, no, pardon me. The Department of Finance did issue a nice document. I'll pull that out and get it to Lindsay later this morning.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for all your work.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to really thank Mark and Jason and Gus. It's been really busy on both the federal and the state side this last probably 2 or 3 months. I mean, with the secretary coming into town and dealing with all of that, as well as the mega grant, and really pushing on the federal side with everything that we've got going on there with our delegation, as well as USDOT, and it's just been the number of grants that have been coming out. I mean, we've just been preparing one grant after another grant after another grant, letter of support after letter of support after letter of support. And so it's just been a lot of work with a lot of these new funding programs that are coming through the door. And then Mark on the state side, there's just been, working with them on the TRCP, and there's been a lot of moving parts with the state budget and earmarks and allocations. And so I just really want to thank our advocacy team, all the hard work that they've been doing and helping us with everything that's been going on. And it's not going to end. It's going to continue as we kind of walk into, another cycle of TRCP, and we're getting ready to submit on the SMART grant. And so it's not going to end. And so I just really want to really appreciate and thank our advocacy team in supporting CCTA.
Great. Yeah, we'll add our thanks. The board certainly adds our thanks to that as well. Appreciate all the information. I always feel so much more informed than when I have to talk about transportation with other people after listening to you guys. I can't quote half the stuff you say, but at least I know the general idea of it. Do we have any written public comments on this item?
No, we do not.
Or any hands raised for public comment?
I see no hands raised.
Okay. Great. Then we will move on to the next item. Thank you all for those updates. Next item on the agenda is an action item presented by Jack Hall, seeking approval of the establishment of an ad hoc committee to review existing management policies and procedures, recommend modifications for the management structure, and pursue further funding opportunities for Gomentum Station. Jack?
Good morning, Chair Nowak and committee members. My name is Jack Hall, and I'm the ITS CAB Program Manager for CCTA. This morning, we are going to give you a program status update on Gomentum Station from Matt Alfano, Vice President of Mobility Innovation with A3 Ventures, and ask for a recommendation to form an ad hoc committee to review our existing cooperative agreement that defines a framework for both parties to work cooperatively in developing transportation, mobility, and safety in Contra Costa County and beyond. Our current agreement is set for renewal in 2023. Now I'd like to hand the presentation over to Matt Alfano with A3 Ventures.
Thank you, Jack. Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Matt Alfano, Vice President of Mobility Innovation at AAA. As Jack mentioned, I'd like to present to you a quick overview of the activities going on at Gomentum Station, particularly utilization and some other key metrics that we track, as well as sort of highlight the activities that have taken place since we became partners at Gomentum, and answer any questions that you might have about the operation of the facility. So let me see, hopefully this will work. Screen sharing. Okay, is this screen visible?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, technology works. So, as I mentioned, we really track utilization at Gomentum Station, and this chart highlights the number of zone reservation days we've had since the beginning of 2020. And so, what I mean by zone reservation days, currently we have 10 zones at Gomentum Station. Then every time a testing partner of ours reserves a zone, that counts as a zone day. So for full capacity, that means 10 days are taken on any given day. So if we look at the growth from 2020 into 2022, 2020 beginning of the pandemic, we had a big dip in April. We were actually closed, so we went to zero on it. And I think throughout the first part of 2021, really the quarter, throughout the remainder of 2020, we were floating just south of 50 zone reservations per month. So, if there's, let's call it 20 business days in a month, almost two and a half partners testing per day. Fortunately for us, we were able to change some of the structure of how our partners were able to test. And we were fortunate that they came back to test. So when we started to get to the end of 2020, partners just were coming back, and our zone rates increased to the point where earlier this year we had exceeded 150 zone reservations in a month. What we were able to do in that time is effectively create new zones out of the existing infrastructure we had. So Bunker City is a nice modular area of the facility. We listened to our partners and they needed another long stretch of road, so we created Zone D. But again, we are busy from a utilization standpoint at the track, which is exactly what we wanted to see when we entered this partnership. Now, the next two slides kind of tell the same story, but I think it's important to show them. This really talks about the percentage of utilization of what zones are available at the track. And when we entered into 2022, we started to see that effectively most of the Gomentum was reserved and we were fully booked. So think of it as kind of structural unemployment. You're never really going to hit 100% utilization. We have one zone, Tunnel, which no one ever really uses. And given how things sort of operate out there, 100% zone utilization is rare. But in early 2022, we were very well utilized, almost approaching 80%, which led us to sort of two things. One, we need to create more zones on this. And so there's a couple ways we can do that. As I mentioned, we can divide up the existing infrastructure that we have and parse up the space. The other function is that once a year, we're able to ask Navy for kind of a wish list that gets put into the sublicense. And this last year, we put in zone expansions for 3 areas, a new space in Bunker City, a new space in the G Street complex, which was actually where we hosted Secretary Buttigieg, even though it wasn't officially an open zone. We were completely booked that day, and that was the only place we could host it for one of our demos, as well as a large capital project we're calling Rail Yard. And again, given that this is a long lead time with Navy, we put the request in about a year in advance. They go through a long approval process, and then they finally grant that ability to us. So, our goals looking forward, and as we move to the end of 2022 and into 2023, is really increase the number of zones because we have partners that want to be testing there. And again, I think this slide tells the same thing as sort of the percentage utilization. It's just literally it's a look at how many active zones per day there are. So throughout the last half of second half of last year, we were half utilized every single day on it. So again, we have a lot of partners coming out, which is great. And we want to be able to set up our partnership and how we expand the capabilities of Gomentum with the capital projects I want to talk about next. So maybe a quick review since we became partners on this. We sort of look at the capital that we reinvest or invest and continue to reinvest into the facility, and just wanted to provide a quick breakdown of what that looks like over again the past 4 years. So when we first started this partnership, we invested $1 million into upgrading the facilities, really the road infrastructure. So you can see we did a lot of work out in Bunker City. That work was also, and Tim likes to talk about that, is our partnership when we with CalSTA, the CalSTA grant. We were able to utilize that to create or sort of to revitalize some of the testing areas. Unfortunately, into 2020 and 2021, COVID took a hit on our really the business, and we just didn't have very good visibility. So that infrastructure or that investment went down. But as we started to see in 2021, the partners really testing, and given the long lead cycle, we put in place a plan to invest over $1 million in the infrastructure this year. That will be going to G Street, which kicks off in a couple of weeks. And that's a $1 million project, again, to pave and rebuild that road infrastructure so it can become a testing zone. Quick note on that, that is not matched by any grants. That is dollars from AAA on that. It's our reinvesting into the facility. And then as we look at 2023, depending upon, again, how we look at our plans, we have a rail yard project there. That could be anywhere from $3 to $5 million worth of investment. Again, we have a plan to be able to fund that ourselves. But again, want to make sure that the committee knows that we continue to invest in a long-term vision and a long-term plan on this, even as we come upon the renewal of our agreement. In addition to infrastructure, I think it's important to note or highlight some of the areas where we're also investing capital resources. So we've invested in 2 solar powered generator and battery systems. So think of them as a very large battery box with solar panels on top. It eliminates our need for gas generators out in remote offices. It was a key point for us. When we got really busy, we would find that we had 6 generators running all day out in Bunker City. Not great for the environment, not sustainable. So AAA, we decided on our own to invest almost $300,000 in this infrastructure to be able to reduce our dependence upon gas powered generators and to sort of put our money where our mouth is on sustainability. Same thing on EV charging. The base is a decommissioned military base. It doesn't have a lot of infrastructure. We received permission from Navy to install DC fast chargers. We installed 2 last year. And it's a unique situation where it allows us to have a DC fast charge on in an electrical infrastructure that shouldn't support it. So we found a company called FreeWire, where they're able to have a unique system where using what should only supply level 2 charging, it can do level 3 charging. So we put in 2 chargers, 4 ports available for our test partners other on site to charge their EV. And again, we made that investment on our own without any grant dollars or any other funding for the tune of $350,000 initially. When we first started, one of the big investments that was made was the VitaX lab in 2019. Again, we deployed these traffic signals for $350,000. It was offset by a CalSTAT grant, which was fantastic. And we continue to operate and maintain these as best we can for continued use of our partners. I think now we're starting to see both our test partners really utilize them. To be very honest, I think in 2019, 2020, and 2021, there was not a ton of interest in the signals. Now we're starting to see the interest in the signals, which is fantastic. So, again, being able to see utilization and return on the investment that was made both by AAA and by CCTA via CalSTAT. As we go through sort of general improvements as well, we've added office space here. We purchased an office trailer to sit just outside of the firehouse. It was an investment of $110,000. It was done for a couple of reasons. First of all, we don't want to upset the Navy. There are very strict rules about how many hours a day and a week we can be in the firehouse. We do not want to run afoul of that. So even though we had, no one would ever really notice, or Navy might not ever come in and audit us on it, we thought it prudent to say, let's remove any benefit of the doubt. Let's spend the money and do this and put an office trailer so that Navy cannot raise any questions about our use of the facility, and that making sure we're not only adhering to the spirit, but the actual very letter of our sublicense agreement. This does not include actually the 5 trailers that are located throughout the test bed. Those are captured in our operating expenses since we leased them. I'm just going through just general capital expenses that we've put into the facility to date. One of the big plans we have coming up is we've actually already purchased the infrastructure to create a storage and office use area for our test partners. Again, thinking outside of the box and being creative, we found a solution where we can have shipping containers that are offices. And if you stagger them in the appropriate places, you can put tents over them for storage and workspace. So a unique solution that fits our kind of our mantra out there. We've actually already purchased these. They're sitting and waiting to be deployed. We bought them for $325,000. We're just trying to find the right space on the base to use them. Again, I think we didn't want to rush into deploying them and upset any of our partners in city or parks on this. But again, we've invested ahead of the time because we know that as soon as we get these up and running, our partners will be able to utilize them. And it creates a sense of permanence for our partners. I think that's a key thing as well. We don't want our partners to be transitory and sort of, they drive in the day and then they leave it the night. We want them to, we want to create a sticky factor for them so that they create jobs in Contra Costa County and continue to put roots down. This is a great way to enable that to happen. And then lastly, I want to just quickly highlight some of the things that are in process and planned as well. So while they may not hit the radar of big hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital expenditures, and it's important to note the dollars that we put into the infrastructure at the facility. So we've installed fiber at the firehouse. That's complete. We have a fiber connection for our test partners, which is key because they have lots of data to upload. Again, did that at our own expense. We are going to commence G Street resurfacing in a couple of weeks, and hopefully it doesn't rain so we can get that finished. And we have partners lined up to use that, which is fantastic. We'll be resurfacing Bunker E in 2023, early 2023, to get that up to spec. I mentioned the rail yard project. That's a really big one that I'd love to go into more detail at an appropriate time. That's a big dollar project that we have lined up. We have permission from the Navy to do it. It's ambitious, but it's exactly the sort of thing we want to be investing in as a partner here at Gomentum Station. We continue to upgrade anything and everything at the base, and I think Navy certainly appreciates our efforts. They have frequent power outages there. Their infrastructure is not exactly kept up to date. Every time they have a power outage, we actually just jump in and fix it for them. So we don't quibble about, well, you have to do this, you have to pay for this. We know, we're a good partner to them. I think it's one of the benefits we have as a private, public-private partnership. Again, we have our approvals process and vetting process, but we have a much more streamlined ability to just get things done out of the facility. I think anytime something goes wrong with the electrical is a great example of that. And again, we continue our maintenance out in the facility. So we want to overlay the railroad crossings to have a smoother test zone. We know that our partners need high-speed connectivity out in Bunker City where there really is no infrastructure. So we found a very unique solution for high bandwidth and high data throughput wireless carrier that'll be going in 2023. And then in looking into 2024, we're going to propose to Navy that we want to widen 12th Street. That's another ambitious project. And again, I think as we continue to prove that we're good stewards of the facility, we continue to look forward to working with our partners at Concord and Navy and Parks to be able to do these sorts of things. But again, I think, I'm very pleased with where this partnership has come since 2019. And we continue to be in a position to reinvest in this facility. And that should be the last slide I have, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Sorry, I have to change my view. No, I didn't even get that out of my mouth.
Thank you. Mark, I really appreciate having the update and seeing you and hearing about the exciting things going on. On the revenue side, I think I'd heard a number that the revenue estimated for this year is about $2.5 million. What's the details on that?
It's a little bit north of that. I would say
3 million.
One of the things that I think part of the ad hoc request is to be able to go into that level of detail. So while as I'm happy to disclose some of the capital projects we have, they're visible. I think one of the things about revenue is that it is tied to our partners. We do respect our partners' privacy on how much they.
Just a big high level number. I mean, we're not after the detail.
Yeah, it's going to be between 3.5 and 4 this year in revenue.
This year. Okay, great. That's kind of what we'll just.
But I think on that as well, again, I'm happy to go into more details on this. So if we're going to do, again, let's say 3.5 to 4 in revenue, we're going to put 2.4 in capital into the facility this year.
Yeah. Okay, great. Mark, thank you again. Look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noah. Paul?
Yes, thanks, Matt, for that. Two quick questions. Can you tell me where are the traffic signals located?
They're located in 2 spaces. They're located in the admin area, which we also refer to as the V2X lab. So there's 2 intersections, or actually 3 intersections that have signals. There's also a set of signals out in Bunker City in Bunker B, which was renovated as part of the 2019 project. And it has striping to simulate a downtown urban area. So those are the 2 locations where signals today. That said, though, our partners
more?
But absolutely, yeah. And I think it's a conversation we have with staff. Tim and I, when we chat constantly about this, it is there's absolutely demand for more on it. I think we've learned a lot with the first set of signals and what we want. And I think every time we we look to add those types of things, we're going to do it better this time. So yeah, we're definitely looking. We'll take any and all infrastructure.
And going forward, all will be solar. Is that right?
That's the intent, particularly if they're where they're placed. There's no power where they're located, so almost by definition they have to be solar. I think that creates a little bit of the unique challenge that we didn't anticipate, is that it's a little bit more of an operations burden on that. Battery cells go dry on it. We have some issues with it, but we're learning through all of those. It's we have a bias towards solar and off the grid solutions.
And last question, you talk about AAA's investment as a partner. Do you seek independent partner grants in any way, or just tell me about your investment? I'm new at how you relate to as a partner with CCTA.
Yeah, I think the grants that we look for really are done in lockstep with CCTA.
Okay.
So it's, not only do we participate in the grants, like the MOD grant as an example. I think when we look at grants for the facility, we do that arm in arm with CCTA. We have not yet gone out independently on our own without CCTA for grants. That's just, we realize and we understand the nature of this partnership and how it operates. Again, I think the things that we look for, particularly when it comes to grant dollars, it only benefits both of us if we're aligned
working together
as one. Exactly. Yeah, we wouldn't want to go rogue, I would say, but it doesn't make sense for us to do that when we have such a good partnership with CCTA.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments? Okay, I'll open up to public comment. Do we have any written public comments?
We've not received any written public comment.
Okay, and any members of the public that wish to speak, please raise your hand. Christina?
I see no hands raised.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
Chair Noack.
Oh, yes, Jack. Do
Yeah,
you
so
want
I
to
was
talk
just gonna-
about? Yeah, do you want to talk about what you actually want us to do here?
So, and I want to thank Matt for that great presentation. Operations at Momentum Station have been going well. And as mentioned earlier, it was very impressive to have the Secretary of Transportation at the site last month. We'd be happy to answer any more questions. And additionally, staff seeks a recommendation to establish an ad hoc committee to review existing management policies and procedures, recommend modifications to the management structure, and pursue future funding opportunities for Momentum Station. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Does anybody have any questions of Jack as to what action we're being asked to vote on today? No? Okay. Do we have a motion? No?
Yeah, I would be glad to move this. And again, Matt, thank you for the presentation, Jack. Thanks for keeping your finger in the water here. I would be delighted to move this. I think this is a great recommendation to move forward. So I'd move the item as presented.
And I will second it. Geringer.
Great. We have a motion from Unrich and a second from Geringer. Geringer, I can't even speak today. This is lack of sleep. I'm struggling now. Can we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Arnrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Fedeli.
Aye.
Commissioner Geringer.
Aye.
And Chair Noack.
Aye.
The motion passes with the members present.
Great, thanks. Next item is correspondence, and we have none. So moving on to chair comments, I'm afraid I am lack of sleep is now catching up to me, so I have no comments. Otherwise, it'll come out totally garbled. Does any commissioners have anything they want to report on? No? Okay. Tim, do you have any comments you want to make today?
No comments today, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And I don't think we have any other business. And so with that, we will conclude and adjourn the meeting to our November 3rd, 2022 meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Get some rest, Sue.
Yeah, thanks.
Thoughts with you, Sue.
Thank you. Thank you.